Very heartbreaking news. Loudly crying face. The painful secret of BTS Jin. Loudly crying face. The heartbreaking truth behind his smile. Imagine standing in the center of a stadium, surrounded by 50,000 screaming voices, yet feeling an overwhelming, deafening silence inside your own heart. Imagine possessing a smile that can brighten the days of millions, while behind closed doors, you question if you are truly deserving of that love. This is not just a story about a global superstar. This is a story about a young man named Kim Seok-jin, who waged a quiet war against his own insecurities to become the Jin we know today. To understand the magnitude of his journey, we must look past the lights, past the applause, and stare into the shadows where his true battle began. Long before the world knew him as the Silver Voice or Worldwide Handsome, Kim Seok-jin was just an ordinary student with a simple dream of becoming an actor. He walked the streets of Seoul not looking for fame, but looking for a purpose. Fate, however, had a different script written for him. When he was scouted by Big Hit Entertainment, he was thrust into a world he was completely unprepared for. While other trainees had spent years perfecting their vocals and sharpening their dance moves, Jin had nothing but his resolve. He was starting from zero. According to various media sources and fan accounts from those early days, the training period was a brutal test of his endurance. He was surrounded by natural-born rappers and dancers, often feeling like an outsider in his own team. The struggle was not just physical. It was deeply psychological. In the cramped dorms of their early years, while others discussed beats and choreography, Jin fought a silent battle against the feeling of being a burden. He had to learn to sing and dance from scratch, pushing his body to the breaking point day after day. There were nights when his legs trembled from exhaustion and his voice cracked from overuse, yet he could not stop. He knew that one mistake from him could hold back the entire group. This fear of being the weak link became a shadow that followed him for years. Fans have often pointed out that in the early choreographies, Jin worked twice as hard just to keep pace, his eyes focused and intense, driven by a desperate need to prove that he belonged. As BTS began their ascent, a new kind of pressure emerged. The industry labeled him the visual, a title that celebrated his beauty but often ignored his talent. For a deeper artist, this can be a suffocating compliment. It implies that your value lies only on the surface. Jin smiled for the cameras, blowing kisses and making jokes, but deep down, a complex struggle was brewing. In his solo track Awake, released years later, he finally gave the world a glimpse into this pain. He sang about how he might never be able to fly like the other flower petals, referring to his talented bandmates. He confessed that despite his perceived limitations, he wanted to run, he wanted to dream. This was not just a song, it was a tearful confession of a man who felt he was running a race he could never win, yet refused to leave the track. The year 2018 marked a pinnacle of success for BTS, but for Jin and the members, it was a year of shadows. The pressure of global expectation was crushing. During the 2018 MoMA Awards, in a moment that shocked the world, Jin stood before the microphone, tears streaming down his face, and admitted that the group had considered disbanding. It was a moment of raw, unfiltered vulnerability. He spoke of the mental hardship, the exhaustion, and the terrifying weight of their own success. While the world saw them as untouchable gods, Jin revealed them as fragile humans, barely holding on. It was a reminder that behind the glamour, there were sleepless nights and conversations filled with doubt. But the darkness did not end there. Even as they conquered the world, Jin faced a personal abyss. In 2020, just before his birthday, he released a song titled Abyss. In a heartbreaking letter accompanying the release, Jin revealed that he had suffered a severe burnout. He confessed to feeling unworthy of the massive success he was receiving. When BTS reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, instead of joy, Jin felt fear. He questioned if he was truly allowed to be this happy, if he was talented enough to stand on such a high pedestal. According to his own words, he felt a desire to just let go of everything and disappear into a quiet corner. This was the imposter syndrome at its most vicious, a voice in his head telling him that he was a fraud, despite every award proving otherwise. What makes Jin's story so compelling is not just the pain, but the quiet resilience he built to combat it. He did not become bitter. He became the caretaker. In the early days, when money was tight and the future was uncertain, verified reports from the members themselves confirmed that Jin used his own allowance to buy ingredients and cook for the group. He drove the younger members, like Jungkook, to school, acting as a guardian and a brother. He absorbed their stress. He realized that the group needed laughter to survive the harsh reality of the industry, so he became the comedian. He sacrificed his image of a cool mystery man to tell dad jokes, making himself look silly just to see his brothers smile. This was not a lack of seriousness. It was the ultimate act of love. He used humor as a shield, protecting the others from the heaviness of their reality. Yet, the emotional tension of his journey continued to simmer. As the eldest, the looming reality of mandatory military service hung over his head like a ticking clock for years. While the world debated his exemption, Jin remained silent, bearing the scrutiny and the uncertainty with dignity. The media speculated, politicians argued, but Jin simply waited. When the time finally came to enlist, he did not complain. He released The Astronaut, a song gifted by Coldplay, which served as a temporary goodbye. In the music video, we see him wandering, a traveler accepting his path. It was a metaphor for his acceptance of duty. He cut his hair, stood tall, and walked into the training center, leaving behind the roar of the stadium for the cold discipline of the military. It was a transition that would break many, but Jin handled it with a grace that silenced his critics. During his 18 months of service, fans waited with bated breath. There was a genuine fear, not just among fans, but likely within Jin himself, about relevance. In an industry that moves at the speed of light, being away for a year and a half can feel like a death sentence for a career. Would the world wait? Would the applause still be there? These are the questions that haunt every idol during enlistment. But when Jin returned, the reception was not just loud, it was emotional. He didn't just come back as a star, he came back as a man who had fulfilled his duty, adding a layer of respect to his already glistening legacy. Now, as he steps into this new chapter of his life, Jin speaks of happiness. His solo album is not just a collection of songs, it is a declaration of survival. However, observant fans and critics notice that his definition of happiness is often tied to seeing others happy. There is a selfless, almost tragic beauty in that. Even now, after achieving everything a musician could dream of, Jin struggles with the concept of doing things solely for himself. In interviews, he often deflects praise, redirecting it to the group or the fans, known as ARMY. It is a humble trait, but it also hints at that lingering shadow of self-doubt, a whisper that perhaps he still feels he needs to earn his place, over and over again. People love Jin not because he is perfect, but because he is painfully human. He has shown us that you can be the most beautiful man in the room and still feel invisible. He has taught us that you can be at the top of the world and still feel like you are falling. His journey from the shy acting student to the global superstar is not a fairy tale of instant magic. It is a grueling documentary of persistence. He practiced singing until his vocal cords bled to prove he wasn't just a visual. He swallowed his pride to make others laugh when he wanted to cry. He held the team together when he himself felt like falling apart. His future now lies open. He talks about living a life with fewer regrets, about finding small joys. But the path of an artist is never a straight line. The pressure to maintain this legacy is immense. Every new song, every new appearance carries the weight of the past. Yet, Jin walks forward. He carries the scars of his early struggles, the memories of his burnout, and the pride of his resilience. He is no longer just the boy who wanted to be an actor. He is the man who acted as the pillar for the biggest boy band in the world. As we watch him performing today, seeing him close his eyes to hit that high note, we are witnessing a victory that is personal as much as it is professional. The voice we hear is not just a melody. It is the sound of a man who refused to let his insecurities silence him. It is the sound of someone who learned to love himself, so he could teach us to do the same. In the end, when the lights go down and the music fades, Jin remains. Not as a statue of perfection, but as a living, breathing testament to the power of kindness and hard work. He reminds us that even the brightest stars have to burn to shine. And perhaps, that is the most beautiful truth of all. The silence that once haunted him is now filled with the love of millions, but the most important voice he hears now is his own, finally telling him, "You did well. You are enough." And for the viewer watching this, that is the enduring message of Jin's life. A message that echoes long after the video ends.